Brandon and Jack, what is the title of the game and where did the name originate?
Well, we just recently actually came upon a title. We decided on Kaiju Assault.
Basically, for the longest time, whenever it was under the conception of up to now, it was just always the Godzilla card game. Because ultimately, the Godzilla franchise has been the backbone of the game, Godzilla and various monsters. But then, with the advent of the way the structure of the game works, we can bring in other monsters from other franchises, and they fit in rather nicely. And even bring in like Ultraman and Red Baron and things of those creatures from those franchises. And so, really, just calling it the Godzilla card game at that time now doesn't quite work, because ultimately it's not just Godzilla and Company. It's well, I guess Godzilla and Company.
It's not just Godzilla now, though. It's incorporating some Gamma monsters, as you mentioned. Red Baron, Ultraman have recently made an addition to the game, and I mean, just pretty much just all kaiju in general. So we went with Kaiju Assault. It was actually originally just something I wrote on one of the cards from one of our previous model sets, just because I needed a title.
Yeah, and it looked good.
What made you come up with the idea for the game? Just a love for Godzilla, or?
Well, it's kind of a 50-50 on a love of Godzilla, but then at the same time, a buddy of mine by the name of Walter, he was in the process of coming up with a Transformers card game, and played said Transformers card game. And for me, ultimately, it was a little bit more complicated than I would have cared for a game to be. But he had a basic concept of you draw your monsters, well, in this case your Transformers, you put them down, you flip a coin after you pick an attack, and you hit even heads you hit, tails you miss. And I was able to take that little seed of an idea and say, well, I can make a slightly less complicated game with easier mathematical numbers, and use the same philosophy for the Godzilla game that I had at that point got the idea. And it kind of stayed that way for several years. This is probably, at this point, it's going to be roughly 2002, 2003. And it just kind of floated that way as a hit or miss, no real ultimate strategy. Rules were fairly basic. And then around, I want to say 2005, maybe 2006, my buddy here, Jack, got curious about a few things, and I showed him the game. And he, being an actual card gamer, was like, well, hey, I see a lot of potential in some of the things that we can do here. And pretty much from that moment on, from literally redesigning the cards to redesigning the play structure, format, it's almost an entirely different beast than what it was.
Yeah, it's changed an awful lot from the original get-go. I mean, the original set was pretty much just hand-drawn. Well, there were cut-out images that were
stuck on index cards.
Yeah, there was kind of like taped to and sometimes glued to. I think they were glued.
Some of them had glue, yeah.
But
I was feeling pricey that day.
they weren't the prettiest, and they were pretty unbalanced. There were some certain issues that needed to be addressed rather quickly with the game, but
definitely some
mainly
holes in the game.
repetitiveness.
Yeah, there was no reason to use certain attacks other than just because you thought you wanted to change names.
Right.
Otherwise, it would be the same thing over and over and over and over and over.
Let's kind of talk a little bit about what G-Fest is, and you know, your experiences at y'all's past G-Fest.
Well, last year, well, first of all, G-Fest is a Godzilla festival. It's a convention for Godzilla fans and fans of the basic genre of giant monsters and fighting and such. This is coming up on the G-Fest 20. Last year was G-Fest 19, obviously. That was one we were at, and
also our first.
Yeah, that was actually our first one. We actually brought the cards with us just so we'd have them, and we were playing in the hallway and ended up with a whole group following around us, and it was rather intriguing for us. I mean, you remember we actually had the one gentleman. He wanted to know if we had the licenses and if he could help us improve the licenses.
Yeah. We had a gentleman confront us about if he basically, in 3 weeks, if he had the money, where could we take the game if he had the access to the licenses. And we told him at that point we would have, you know, a working model. We're just doing some beta testing. we weren't really thinking anything big with it. We just wanted a fan game for fans. And then he kind of gave us some ideas on the potential of where we could take things. And in doing so, we got really excited. And we just really went through and started changing and tweaking more than just the minor complaints. And that's why you have beta testing, is to find out what works and what doesn't work. And we really actually started adding not only new monsters, but slightly new abilities, retweaking some of the play structure. So the game we take to G-Fest this year will be probably about 85% the same game that was there last year. But there's going to be a decent amount of new material in the game, plus new monsters. And so we're really hoping that the people that play it this year, since we're going to be given some time in the game room, because even the guy that runs the game room was really interested in it.
He was there last year. He actually was up till about, what was it, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning playing with us.
Yeah, he played a couple rounds, and if I remember correctly, and so he was really intrigued and wants to. He's going to give us some time in the game room all weekend, just to see if we can get fans to play and, well, obviously acknowledge.
Right.
But then we can decide if where we would go from here to there. Be it something that we want all fans to be able to do, or if we just want to make it kind of like a G-Fest exclusive, a bunch of guys get together to play.
Right.
But I think in the end, really it's all about the fans getting to play.
Yeah.
But the great thing about the game is it's not just for fans. We've got, in fact, several people that have been playing recently. They really don't know anything about the Kaiju genre, and in doing so, they just have a game that they can play and they've enjoyed. There are a lot of like Magic the Gathering people and Yu-Gi-Oh! And such. And they've actually enjoyed playing the game quite a bit. So it's not only a game for fans, it's a game for really all game players. There's one right over there. In fact, they're playing as we speak. So, but yeah, it's been a rather interesting ride. And with G-Fest, it was our first year, and we just basically brought the game. So we had a feeling that at one point we might get into a lull. And what do? We play games we create, and that's ultimately what we did. Next thing I know, we've got people watching and we're playing in the restaurant, we're playing at the bar, we're playing in the game room, and it was just, here's the deck, go play.
I liked when we finally got the game room table, when the other gamer groups left.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
You ended up taking over the table unintentionally.
Yeah. So then just, people started gathering around and playing and stuff.
And it's a really easy game to do, too, because even after like maybe 2 games, people were already teaching other people how to play. So that's when I actually fixed it.
Right.
Playing against other people that aren't as
Go ahead, say it.
not as tactically advanced. When you win, you're like, oh, well, that's just because I knew what to do tactically. No, this one's just a balancing issue.
And that's another thing that's really, for styles evolved, is not only the balancing, but the modes of play. You've got, as most of y'all are probably familiar, there are 3 major eras in kaiju filmmaking. There'll be the Showa, and then the Heisei, and then the Millennium Run. But they're all drastically different from each other. One of the really big things in the Showa was like throwing rocks and grabs and team-ups and throwing each other across the field. Beams were present, but they didn't rely on beams. It was very much like a rough and tough wrestling match, yeah. And then in the 90s, you got to where it was more beam-oriented. You had beam battles and high-tech missiles and things. And then in the Millennium era, you got even more high-tech with homing missiles and actually somewhat competent military, but still not very much. But higher attacks, more impressive attacks and such. They really comparing the eras is almost like trying to compare a genre. And so what I wanted to do was create or try to recreate the genre, the eras themselves. So whenever you're playing with some of the monsters, if you want to dominate with grabs and physical attacks, you totally can. You don't have to touch a beam at all. If you're a big Heisei era guy and you just want to beam rape the hell out of somebody, which we all know happened in the Heisei era, you're more than welcome to. There's structure and rules to it. It's like an every other turn type of thing. But you can dominate from a distance, and even in some cases, the beam battle is very much, in fact, we had a lot of those tonight. Depending on how you roll, you can get into beam clashes and beam battles and such, and the outcome can be pretty devastating. We tried really rather to grasp the feel of all three of the eras into the game.
How many characters are currently in the game?
You know, we keep adding as time goes. We had 54 about, what, 3 days ago, and it went to 55?
It's about 55. Now there are, I'm going to say, 3 Godzillas. You have a Final Wars, you have a G2K. As far as it goes, you've got a Heisei Godzilla, you have a G2K, and you have a Final Wars. I've got some ideas for a Showa Godzilla, but he hasn't quite been tweaked the way I want, because he was kind of ludicrous in some of the things that he did. Oh, and you have a Burning Godzilla, so thank you, that's 4. But then you have Junior, then you've got Minya in the game. You have a Fate Godzilla, which eventually becomes 74. Mecha Godzilla in the game. And then I think we narrowed it down to 1 Angus, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Lowered
so
down to 1 Angus.
there was at one time multiples of other monsters, but we've narrowed it down. Tried to basically find a card that could work as the best of the various ones. And then you've got Ultraman, who's one of the newest additions, and he's in beta testing, same as Red Baron.
They've worked well. I don't think we have to change it.
I don't think there's going to be much tweaking. So I'd say there's, like he was saying, there's anywhere between 55 and 60 monsters in the game, plus a military run. But potentially by the end of next month, there very well could be 10 more, 5 more. It really, it's structured to where we can bring anybody in with little tweaking, so to speak, the way the system is structured. So if you wanted to bring in, I don't think we're going to do this, but there's a potential chance we could, say one of the Megazords or what have you from Power Rangers or in Sentai.
That'd be a little rougher, but yeah.
It would be rougher, but we could totally do it. The structure is that simple. But that's going to be a rough card to work with.
Yeah. So being a fan of the series, it'd be hard for me to give them anything that would be not winning.
Not godly.
So that'd be very challenging for me to deal with.
So y'all said y'all be going to next year's G-Fest. Y'all plan on anything like special, any like cards y'all are just gonna unveil at G-Fest?
Actually,
any certain number of cards you want to get to by G-Fest, like total wise?
There's not only a total wise, but there are cards that will be played officially for the first time at G-Fest. And then there's pretty much the big unveiling is going to be the new format of the card, the new design, and hopefully a final design.
Yeah. Hopefully it won't change the format again.
So and we're not using, and you can go on to like Google or what have you, and you can do take a Magic the Gathering card and put your picture on it, or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon. It's nothing like that. It literally is we sat down and made a template, and it was a Photoshop, I guess?
Yeah, I used Adobe Photoshop.
And we sat there and went through, well, I say we, this is actually more of what he did, because, well, he's got the computer skills. Sat there and basically made a design that I liked, and then he could tweak and then repeat. And it's pretty simple. Each card has a front and a back.
We have front and back. We have the cost and tiers of monsters written on the backs of the card for everybody, so it'll be really easy for them to tell how much they cost, how to bring them out, how to get them on their team, and all that.
Right, how many people can play at one time?
There technically really isn't a limit, but we found out that when you exceed, say, 5 or 6, it starts getting a little long-winded. I would probably say 4 would be a good number. That's when it's still close enough where everyone's still into it. When you exceed that, people talk because it's busy on other people's turns, and people hold grudges.
Yeah. We've played, I think the biggest match we've ever played was 7. But I think the ideal match is 4. And then the one-on-ones are obviously perfect.
One-on-ones are obviously just fine. 3-way also works great. 4 is a little more chaotic. I actually like the 4s. Gives more chaos to everything. You never know what's going to happen. When the military kicks in, they're firing stuff everywhere.
And we've seen the military totally level a playing field.
Well, not really. I mean, they do the end shots. They're like the ones finishing the stuff off. So really, the monsters are doing all the damage. I mean, a monster will do 800, and the military comes across those 40 and ends up doing the last 40 that's needed.
Oh, I've had, my King Kong game last that I had. Yes, King Kong is in the game. King Kong never got touched, but he went from the roughly 800 points of health down to 75. Nobody attacked him in the game. It was strictly military. It was a long game. It was a lot of military, but it seemed like every time military happened, it was King Kong was the one getting attacked. And he ended up dying. He got basically slapped, and he just fell over dead. But it was the military that really just rocked his socks off. So
we plan on improving the military too with different things. We actually conversed about possibly adapting it so you can actually build your own military deck and play with that specifically instead of playing a group military. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's beta testing for another day.
Yeah. How long has the game been in development?
This would be 2002, 2003, something along those lines.
It's been over 10 years technically, but I mean it's been off and on.
Yeah.
And I didn't, like I mentioned, I didn't even get into it until several years later. And then again, we kind of tinkered around. To us, it was just a hobby.
Right.
Yep.
It was only when we actually went to G-Fest and were playing in the hallway and people got excited about it when we finally realized we had something more than what we knew.
We just were making a game that,
it was fun.
yeah, we could sit there and enjoy. And ultimately, we never really found a good Godzilla card game. And again, that was the backbone at the time. There was a couple of them out there, but they're rather interesting to play. Some of them I just never really could get into. That translate the cards became complicated.
One of the things I've noticed is that on those, a lot of times it's like how much you deal to the city. Oh, you did this much damage to the city, you win because you dealt the most.
And then there's that.
It's not about the city. The city was never the issue.
Right.
The monsters aren't even trying to destroy the city. The monsters are trying to attack each other.
Well, and that was another thing that we really decided to focus on. Because you've got card games that are deck building games, and then you've got card games that are about attacking HP and players and things. This is, you can deck build. So, to a degree you can, but it's still going to be a draw system. That doesn't change. But ultimately this game is about one monster or multiple monsters bashing the tar out of another monster. And that's what the franchise was about as kids. That's what we enjoyed the most is, like who's going to win? Godzilla versus King Kong, or Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Who's going to be the one to win? Oh no, Ultraman's fighting, blah 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 today. And that's what we always watched it for. And that's what I wanted the game to be. And Jack has understood that, and he, I guess, assumed completely agreed. And was just like, well, that's what the game's got to be. So it's always monster versus monster. Strategy unfolds from there.
Created the artwork for the playing cards?
Actually, that's a good question. Originally, when we were first doing it, it was just clips from the movies themselves or hand-drawn stuff that you found online. But right now, we're actually using Facebook connections, and we're both part of a group. And this Facebook group, they're all fans of Toho monsters in general, and we've asked them to submit art for us to use, and they've been really, really supportive. They sent a lot of art for us. All the art we currently are using is going to be fan-based, fan-drawn by these people. So everyone can look forward to not only playing the game but also seeing their own artwork in the game. So it's really nice to be able to do that for them.
So the supporters of the Toho Kaiju Union have been very, very helpful for us.
Yeah, I should have mentioned the name of it.
There's several names out there. Credit will definitely be having to be given where it is due. Some of these people have done 1 or 2 cards, and some of them have literally just, here's a stack of 50,000 monsters. It's like,
They
wow,
don't know yet, but we're probably going to give them a free deck.
they were doing monsters for, rather art for cards that aren't even in the game at the moment. We have plans for them, but they were really excited. Oh, I want to see this, and so they do the artwork and give it to us. Well, whenever you do put it in there, here's the monster for it. Okay, thanks.
Well, that's how my response was.
Step ahead.
I don't know who this is. Brandon, who is this?
And there was quite a bit of that, but they have been very, very supportive, and the artwork has just been beyond expectations. Everything is original. Some of it is color redesigns. Some of it is monster redesigns. All of it is interesting. Huh?
I've liked most of them,
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, I've been like, wow, that's awesome. That's a great change.
Yeah.
So it is. They definitely will fall under the category of a game made for fans, by fans, drawn by fans, to be played by fans. It's fans.
It's all
fan base, huh?
Yeah, it is. We want the fans to enjoy it. And I think that's something else that's helped spread the word about our game a bit, is indeed the fact whenever we made the call, hey, if anybody's interested in doing art for this, we got a person bite here and a person bite there, and then like a week later it was beating our door down, and it was like, okay, maybe this is the right way to go. And then this person was showing off their art for the game, and this person was like, oh, this is a cool picture, you're making a card game. And he advertises it over on his Facebook page, and it was just like, no, this is actually their game, so they get sent to us, and we're like, yeah, this is our game, feel free to advertise. And so it's kind of getting, and so we're hoping that with the Facebook attention, and with G-Fest literally being, 15, 16 days away at this point,
very close.
It would be rather neat to see everybody kind of converge, especially the artists, because I know some of the artists will definitely be at G-Fest.
Yeah, they're going to want to see that work.
And hopefully they'll want to play just as much as they want to see, but I think it'll be a really neat treat for them to see something so unique and something that they put time and effort in, reinforcing what we put time and effort in.
Yeah. Who is your favorite character? Just, one at a time. Go ahead. Whoever first.
I already know mine.
Well, ultimately, I am a Godzilla fan at heart, so I'm always prone to playing with the Godzilla cards. I had become a pretty big fan of Red Baron, which in the game he's rather interesting to play. And I'm pretty big on Guron as well, from the Gamera run of everybody. So kind of got a couple that are currently in the game that I definitely am prone to playing and using.
Kiryu and Fire Radiant. I've always been a big fan of Fire Radiant, hit and runs, best way to fight ever. And Kiryu, missiles.
Yeah.
Missiles, Absolute Zero Cannon. They have some really cool things, and with the card, there's some advantages that I like to take advantage of all the time.
That's why they're advantages.
Yes. There are certain things that I like to do often, and he just happens to have most of them. And Fire Radiant has, again, a lot of moves that I like. Of course, I guess I kind of tweaked that a little bit in my favor. But
well, his desperation is one of the
his
things that makes
desperation
him...
was really neat. He had the ability to bring back other monsters that have fallen, as he did so in the movie. So we took advantage of that and put that in there as a recent attack.
Alright, y'all kind of mentioned other card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic. What makes Kaiju Assault different?
Well, I guess I'd probably be more prone to answer that. Magic the Gathering, it's a deck building thing. If you have thousands of dollars, you're going to have one of the best decks you can. And if you ever go to some sort of tournament, most games, it's all about who has the best cards. I played with the old sets before they got the new stuff, and the new stuff, they have cards that are far superior to mine, and it's all about how you build your deck. There's almost no chance in it, except for which one of the cards I draw from my deck. That's it. With Kaiju Assault, there is no hand. You're not holding assortment of cards and trying to decide which one do I need to play to do this thing next. It's just a lot more simple, and you can have a lot more fun because you never know what's going to happen. The military comes in, it can do random things to you. The other monsters, they can hit, they can miss. You can have an effect on your monster, it prevents them from hitting you. There's a lot of things that can go on that are different, and we throw it completely in chaos. And it's really fun and entertaining to see that kind of effects happen. I mean, you've been there when we've had people that will actually get so excited over a roll of dice that they'll jump out of their chair.
Done that once, twice. Yeah, it, really, we had a match earlier tonight. We had a player down to 10 HP with his final monster. And he was fighting, I don't remember who it was, some Scorosaurus, who was at that point down to 80 HP. No, it was Guron?
Yeah, it was Guron.
Okay, it was Guron, down to 80 HP. And the military could have killed either card where their HP was standing. But he managed to literally land off an attack that ultimately made him win. But it went from being him at full 700 HP for the entire game almost up until literally the last 2 or 3 turns where he was down to 10. And he went from being the guy that is obviously going to win to, oh crap, dude, somebody farts in your direction, you're going to die. And he ended up pulling the the big W from that point on, but it was a pretty exciting roll.
Anything you want to leave the fans with?
Well, I hope that everybody that does get to play the game enjoys the game as much as we ultimately enjoyed building it. Again, it's been 10 or so years in the making, and the game has evolved. Well, really every year it seems to have gotten. You know, at one point we had the military in it, and the next minute we got rid of the military because they just functionally didn't work. And then about literally a year or so ago, I had an idea for making the military work, and it became not only something that leveled the playing field, but it became chance. And so we're hoping that everybody that gets to play it enjoys it as much as we obviously enjoy making it. And I hope everybody kind of that is fans of the genre can, and even not fans, they can kind of imagine these fights actually taking place.